Alrighty folks, how's it going? A little different video today. We are going to do a modification video. I'm actually going to be putting built-in sonar onto my new Minnkota trolling motor. And you're probably asking, why did you get a new trolling motor without sonar if you wanted it? And truth is, I got a deal on this thing. Crazy deal, and I now have spot lock. So I looked at the prices of doing this modification myself afterwards and buying this the way it is, and much more cost effective. So that being said, we're gonna slash in with the intro, and we'll get back to the parts and stuff that you need to do this little project. Catch you later. Stick around. All right. Nice. That's two to my. Personal best, baby. Personal best. Oh, okay, I'm letting you go. Oh my god. Alrighty folks, so when it comes to the parts you're going to need for this project, first things first, I have a Minnkota Powerdrive 55-pound thrust trolling motor with iPilot. This is the 2017 and newer version. This is the unit that I am going to be putting sonar onto. I know a lot of people, I struggled with my old Powerdrive. I had an old Powerdrive where I had to mount a transducer down the side of it. There was no good way to route the cable, and to be honest, I snapped a few of them. So this, I mean, as long as I have 2D sonar up front, that's all I'm really worried about. That way I can have a tab on what my depth is doing right here, and then my console sonar, I can have that flipped around so I can see what the depth's doing at the back of the boat. So if I see, you know, 15 foot off the front of the boat, and then my back graph is calling out like 3 foot, I know there's a really good drop just in the length of my boat alone. So yeah, that is the reasoning for doing this. So going down the list of parts, I found all these parts relatively easy. First things first is you want to find a nose cone. You can buy these nose cones off Trolling Motor, I want to say it's Trolling Motor Warehouse or trollingmotorparts.com. Let's see, I got this sticker right here. Yeah, trollingmotorparts.com. That is where I got this from, and I got a really good deal. I got this whole housing with the transducer and everything in it. This is like 100 bucks. So I mean, killer deal. And what this is going to have your transducer cable that you will run up through your shaft, so on and so forth. And this is only long enough to make it to the top of your shaft, get it to the head of your trolling motor. So that part is out of the way. Next, you're going to want to get one of these universal sonar extension cables. I got the 110-inch one because, well, it's the shortest extension I could get, and I only need this to go up to the front of my boat. This is literally the only fish finder this trolling motor is ever going to be affixed to. It's going to be one that is within 2 foot away from the trolling motor. So I'm going to have this coiled up. I will figure out a way to rig this so it's not just laying all over the place getting tangled. But yes, this is another thing that you will need. This will actually be where it hooks in up at the head of the trolling motor and comes out to your fish finder. And for me, I'm using Garmin. So Garmin isn't just a plug and play when it comes to these universal sonar. So I got this right here. I got this adapter. This adapter is going to screw into the end of this cord. That way you can, from the Hummingbirds or the universal sonar side to just the normal Garmin 4-pin. They do have, if you go to Minnkota's website, they have every single adapter that they make for these things, and I'm pretty sure they can facilitate just about any single graph out there. Don't take my word for that completely. I just know their list is quite large and extensive, and I know from the fact of looking online, everybody's saying that these can only be used with one fish finder. It's only Hummingbird. Hummingbird's the only one that they'll work with. And I'm not going to say that right now because I don't want to jinx myself, but at the end of this video, hopefully we have a Garmin plugged into it and it's reading sonar. Alrighty, first things first, getting this thing torn apart is your head unit, or the head of your trolling motor. You're going to have 4 screws. So you can see these 2 right here, and there's going to be 2 more back here. So you're going to want to take those out. It's going to separate your trolling motor head from itself to the top. Alrighty, so by the time we get to the top of this trolling motor head, you're gonna see this. This right here is your iPilot. This everything right here has to do with your iPilot. And that cord is gonna come through that. This is not gonna get disconnected. What we are gonna be disconnecting right here is these cables right here. I did shorten my shaft, so I have a little bit of extra right here. I kept that in case I would ever need to, you know, maybe lengthen my shaft back up. So before I had these little loose fitting blue collars, I put shrink tubing on them because I did not like these little collars that were just barely, there was a short waiting that happened. Let's just get there. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna cut these shrink tubing off here. I'm gonna disconnect these wires, and then we are gonna pull out this screw and this bolt, and then this is all gonna slide off. We're gonna take the head of the unit, we're gonna set it off the side of the boat, and we're gonna pull the motor shaft out of the steering column. And then we're gonna get that isolated and get away and try to unscrew this shaft from the lower unit. Alrighty, so I went and grabbed a little razor blade, utility blade, whatever you have may call it, just so I could split this casing. And I do have more of this, so I will be putting this back on once everything is said and done here. Yeah, we'll give you a closer look at this. This is how these were in here when I first opened this sucker up. And as you can see, these things are barely long enough to cover these things. And I can literally just tap those down. Yeah, so, I mean, they're nice and thick. So once you get, I'm not gonna lie, once you get your coverings on them, or your shrink tubing, they fit really snug. And at that point, they're really good, and I would think at being abrasion resistant. So there's that. We're gonna pull off the head right here to get this thing out of the way. Like I said, it's just this one screw right here. This bolt goes all the way through the shaft. So as far as tools that I've needed so far, you know, you could have done this with a drill, a driver, you know, but as long as it's a Phillips head, you can get it done. Majority of this work today is going to be done with this Phillips head screwdriver. I lied. I have one hose clamp. You guys probably do not have a hose clamp on your trolling motor right here because you did not try to rig up a transducer on the side of your thing already. So yes, this little addition will probably not be on yours or right now, so you won't even need this flathead screwdriver like I currently do. But yes, as we use different tools, and a different tool that you guys are going to need or run into, I will post all that in a link underneath this, so that way you guys know what you guys need. So another thing, I took off this collar. And I'm setting all these parts aside because none of those will have to be used in any of the rest of this, you know, as far as the swapping the shaft. So piling parts, new parts, old parts. We'll get back to you on, we're gonna get this thing rigged up somewhere stable so that way I can get enough leverage on this shaft to untwist the threads. And from what I heard, I think we might have to even heat it up, so, because there is a sealant in those threads. So alrighty, we'll get this rigged up and get you back on it. Alrighty, so got the whole trolling motor slid out of the bracket, and yeah, as long as you have the head of your motor off and you do take this off before you can slide it out of there, then there'll be nothing on that shaft, and those things should just slide right out. Make sure that these aren't catching on anything while you're pulling it out, so they're not, you know, tugging on anything. Shouldn't really be a problem as long as you know you got them bent fairly straight. I did put this back on here because I believe I'm going to want that for leverage when it comes to twisting this thing out of this here in a little bit. And from what I've gathered, I've watched some videos myself, and there is a sealant in here that is really, really hard, and I guess you can loosen it up by heat. So they torched it a little bit, got her a little warm so you could start spinning her. So we're gonna try to do that. Oh, there we go. It just took a lot more heat than I thought it was going to. But she's coming out just like that. There we go. I prefer not to let these wires touch that until it cools down. So we're gonna let this cool down a little bit and continue. We got this thing all torn apart. She's cooled down a little bit. I did wrap those little wires in a rag and stuffed it in there just so they weren't making contact with them threads, putting any little marks in them where that might crack open after, you know, getting bent around. So we are going to start tearing this apart so we can transfer all this motor and the brushes and everything to the other head. So the first thing you're going to need, a half-inch socket for this nut, and some of you guys might have the little finger nut on there. That being said, you could use, if it's on there really tight, you might need a pair of pliers to grip it. Otherwise, you know, you just take it off with your fingers. So we are just going to take this off, and there should be, if you don't have the finger lock, the finger nut one, you're going to have this right here, a nylon nut with a washer. If you can get the washer off, I'm going to set these aside, and then you want to be careful. Some of these newer ones, these things are a little stiffer in there, but your shear pin, you don't want to lose these unless you have spares. And even if you have spares, you don't want to waste your spare on something silly, losing it in the driveway. So now that we got that off, you're going to see these two bolts right here. These are 5/16. You're going to want to take these out. And before I did anything, I did make marking indications on the center of where my shaft is, and down at the center where my skeg is on this, just so that way for swapping purposes to the other one, figuring that the shaft and that skeg is also straight in the middle of the trolling motor, it should make it a little bit easier when we have to go to install that. So got one loosened up, got the second one loosened up. This is where you want to be careful. You want to make sure you take everything off in order. You're paying attention. Biggest thing is paying attention. You have to be paying attention to where everything is. Because there's two little O-rings that are going to be right on the back side of here. We are going to end up replacing these just because these ones have had torque on them, and I just took off the torque, and I want to make sure that they reseal up well. So first thing we're going to be taking off, we're taking off this whole end cap right here. At this point, you can probably pull out your screws. There's those little O-rings I was talking about. Before I spin this too many times, I want to make sure everything's, you know, within the right side. So I'm gonna put a little arrow going to the top. I'm gonna put this right here, right where I put this line, I'm gonna put a T that stands for top. Otherwise, you know, this could be flipped upside down. Not that I think it's gonna be a really big deal, because all this is a magnet housing, and then the inside of it spins anyway. So I'm gonna spin this as it comes off, just so it's not rubbing on these threads right here. I'm gonna inspect this. This O-ring right here is an O-ring we will be changing to. This one actually looks really good. They're all gonna look really good. This trolling motor's practically brand new. So, alrighty. Now here is the trickier part. I guess not yet. When this goes back together, it's gonna be super tricky. But when you're gonna pull these out, you're gonna hear clicking, and it's gonna be your brushes coming off your armature. I am gonna take these two washers also. Notice that there is like a carbon washer right there, and then there's a steel washer. The steel washer is toward the motor side. So when you put these back on, you're gonna put the steel washer on first, and then you're gonna put that little fiber washer on second that goes in between the brass on the back of that plate. So this, you wanna be really careful as you can, and just pull that out of there. So there we go, there's your armature, and mine looks, you know, as it should. It looks brand new. So that's a good deal. Checking that bearing, like I said, shouldn't be any issue. Okay, so this is the meat and the potatoes. This is what we're gonna be pulling out of here. These brush bracket, we're gonna be transferring this, and that's gonna come along with these wires, and we're gonna be transferring that into the other head. So from here, it looks like I got two Torx head screws holding that brush holder in, and we'll get that out, get those wires pulled out, and we will rig up the other lower unit and start installing stuff. right, there we go. All right, there we go. There are my little arrows for the top of it. While we have this out, I'm just gonna make sure that these things are moving freely. You know, just checking. I know all this stuff should be good, so once again, just checking. So now we have the new head, the new nose cone in our little makeshift vise I just made out of my boat motor stand. And this is going to be the cable for our new built-in sonar right here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to feed this up through here just to get it up and out of the way. Get everything else in there. Don't want to be fighting it once we have the brush rack in there. So now we're going to get our brushes and get them things stuck up in there. Okay, we finally got that thing rerouted. Those wires had a little bit of a memory from that last housing that had just ugga-dugga the room up front. This one has a transducer in it. So, one thing I recommend, especially in the inside, is something that you're not going to take apart for a very, very long time. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I put Loctite on my stuff. I don't go crazy with the red. You know, I'll use a dabble of the blue. That way I know vibrations, you know, if I whack something, I'm gonna have some, you know, some other stability there, holding all that stuff. Now that we got that all in there, as you can see, I got all these are the two screws that take it out. When you do put this transducer on there is a grounding strap that you're gonna want to ground underneath one of them screws. So just so you know that, there's that little grounding strap. So now we are gonna put that little cardboard deal back in, face out that those brushes. It's always a headache. Alrighty, so there we are. Now we got that put in there. We are gonna take this. Let's move you back over here. This is where it all gets pretty tricky. So we're actually gonna do the other way of doing this. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna put this in there so we can visually see that it's going in. And you guys are gonna see just how strong these magnets are. They're freaking nuts. Okay, so we got that in there, all the way in there. Make sure you get that bearing pushed all the way up into that seating surface. Now you want to take this. You're gonna want to try to hold it and hold that shaft, but you want to keep that armature in there because this thing is gonna suck itself right to it. Well, I jumped ahead a little bit. Forgot we weren't working on the old motor head, and I almost forgot to put a dang gasket in there. So we took that back off. The armature's still in the housing. I'm just gonna kind of lube this gasket up a little bit. Not heavy, just something so there's a coating on it, so that way when this is mating surfaces, it's sliding together. There's not drying and ripping and tearing it. This way it'll slip a little bit more. And this will help it stick in there too. So this white one's gonna go between your housing and your magnet. I'm just gonna take this little flathead screwdriver and make sure I screwed it up against that whole mating surface. Make sure she's pretty centered. Which, once you get her all flattened out against that back, it pushes up and it centers itself pretty much. But, got her in there. Round 2 on this. We're gonna do this right this time. Looking for my T for the top. I'm gonna grab that shaft. Ooh, see that? That's what I'm talking about. If you were not ready for it, she'll really throw herself in there. Alright, just had to make sure that all that was still in there and in place the way it should be. I'll let that sit while I get my other gasket ready. And this other O-ring, this other O-ring looks actually bigger and beefier than the one I'm getting. It looks like it would seal up a lot better, so I think I'm going to continue to use that. before we get that, we're going to put these washers on. Remember these washers? You had that steel one, goes toward the C-clip right there on the end of the shaft, and this fiber one will go right here. Alright, just like I did with the other ring, I'm just going to move this up so that way it's sliding and sealing. You can see there's this beveled edge, and that's what that beveled edge is, what this is going to seal up against. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything as right as you can, because, you know, for me, my trolling motor is already out of warranty. I bought it used, so I'm not super worried on, you know, ruining a warranty or anything. So I don't really have that scare in my mind. But having it work, that is, you know, always an ordeal. So I'm just gonna kind of move up this shaft before I put this thing back on here. Again, trying to wipe off most of the excess because I just don't want it to smash together. I just want it to have a film on there so that way these rubber seals and everything will slide and not tear. Alright, I'm looking for that arrow I had for the pointing up. Gonna put that together right there. That is all on. That line is pretty much lined up. Now I'm gonna grab my 2 big long bolts, and those O-rings we will be replacing. They come in the kit as well. Alright, so there's one. Get that one stuck in there and started. There we go. That one started. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to snug these up. And I want to try to tighten them down fairly even. Just so that way all the gaskets are getting pulled on even. I want it just enough so where I can still turn this motor, because I'm going to go through here now. And I'm going to look at all my markings. Try to make sure they are all in the correct spot. And now I'm going to tighten her down. Alright, I got her all snugged up, so she should be ready to go as far as the rest of the install back together. So I'm going to throw this prop back on. Just don't forget to put your shear pin back in there. And don't forget you want it to line up. You're going to see right in the bottom of your prop there are these 2 grooves right here. You want to make sure those line up. I know if you're watching this video and you plan on doing this yourself, I would think you would have, you know, pretty good confidence in some of this stuff. And that being said, folks, I am not a licensed, you know, professional at doing this. I just do it on my own a lot, because quite frankly, it's almost always cheaper, and I do have knowledge of how things work. So yeah, it helps. So yeah, we got this done. We are gonna get these cables ran back up through that shaft, and then we're gonna get some sealant on those threads, and then yeah, we'll get her all put back together. Hopefully she goes back together straight. Alrighty, so this is what I'm going to be using today to seal up these threads. This is some 3M 4200 fast cure. This is what I used to seal up all the bolts on my transom when I redid my transom this spring. And the stuff's pretty well known. So I know it's super thick. Like, I've been milking this tube for a while, and I know a lot of people say once you open it, it's done. You know, it gets all hard and stuff. I put it in 2 Ziploc bags and I throw it in my fridge, and this stuff to this day still works. So this is what we're going to use on these threads on this, and we're going to apply it and get the thread. This stuff comes out really thick, even when it's a brand new bottle. So So I got some thrown on there. I'm gonna wipe this into the threads. Biggest thing is making sure you get it down in those threads. You don't want any air pockets, because air pockets mean water will get in there. And then you get water in there, and then everything we just work so hard to do will be all up in smoke. Literally, or figuratively, and possibly literally, depending on how well your trolling motor likes water inside the casing. Alright, I know I got plenty on there now. We're gonna thread that in there, and we're gonna have probably quite a bit of excess to wipe off at the end. But I would rather have excess than not enough. Ready? You're ready now? Here's the shot out. And I'm just going to check out. Over there. She's not quite straight yet. Let's see if we can't keep pulling her over a little bit. Ever so little bit. I know we want to have our trolling motor head straight once she's all said and done. I just gotta have her pretty dang full. Yeah, she looks pretty good. So this collar being here, I have to have that collar here. You can see it right here. This collar is what this trolling motor over here, that's what this will end up locking to once you have that up. So I had to have that on there. I can't screw it up any further because it is threaded. And once this stuff sets up nice and tight, I will actually screw this down. I'll screw that all the way down. So that way she's ready to rock. Alrighty, so now that we got that done, we are gonna put this back into the trolling motor, and we are going to get the wires run back up through the head, and we're going to start hooking up all the other wires. So yeah, we're making good pace. Alrighty, so now we are going to get back into putting this back through the steering motor. Don't forget to take this off. You want to take your little steering block off, your height stop, whatever you want to call this little collar. I had mine on to use it as leverage to twist my shaft off, and you want to take that off, or else you're going to be redoing all of this. And as it can go easy, so it might not be a big deal. Sometimes it can be a pain. So with this one, I had a 54-inch trolling motor shaft. I cut it down to 45 because I couldn't find a 45-inch one in stock. That's what I wanted. This nose cone came with a long enough wire to run a shaft for a 54-inch. But so I'm going to have a little bit of extra right here. So what I did was, with this extra longer, the longer one, I ended up putting that through the shaft first. You could actually just bundle them all up in your hand and stick them up through there, and you just want to feed them through there. Make sure they're going through there straight, so that way you don't got any binding issues when you're trying to put it up in there. And then once that shaft gets to that steering, just put it up and you can lock it. And with mine, I have my boat trailer right here. My trolling motor is sitting on my boat trailer. I'm now going to take this collar. And you want to take the collar, the side with the step on it. That's the side that wants to go down onto the shaft like this. So I'm going to take those wires, put it inside that step side, bring that down onto the trolling motor shaft. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it somewhere. I'm going to put it right here. Right here, so I know I'm going to have enough room to work. And there we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end up flipping this back over. We're going to put this trolling motor back in stow, into its stow position. So that way we can get that head put back on there and get some more of them wires routed. So we'll get to it. Alright guys, so we've got everything set up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our trolling motor head. You want to use, you're not really doing anything with the iPilot at the top of your trolling motor head yet. What you want to do is we got to feed these cables through that bottom of that trolling motor head. And for most of you guys out there that are getting the exact same nose cone with the right shaft length of cable for your trolling motor, you're going to have a lot less trouble with this. Not that I'm having a lot, I just have extra wire because I shortened my shaft and I wanted to make sure I had plenty. So I didn't want to low in myself. So you're gonna have, if this bolt falls out, you're gonna have this longer screw right here and this little nut. You're gonna want to feed that through that hole in your trolling motor shaft. You're gonna watch these wires. That screw is actually gonna split your battery cable wire because it's going right through the middle of your shaft. So you're gonna want to kind of look down in there. Maybe if you need a little flathead screwdriver to move stuff around, just to make sure you're getting everything in place. There we go. Now come out the back side, so you're just going to take this screw, this nut, and you're going to hold this nut in here. And it's got a set in there where it will hold itself. You won't have to put a wrench or anything on it, as long as you get her threaded. I believe we're threaded up. Yep. So you're just going to want to tighten her down. And this is the point before you get too far and letting that stuff cure in your trolling motor shaft. You're going to want to kind of eyeball down it. You know, try to make sure your trolling motor shaft, if you have iPilot, this matters. If you do not have iPilot and you are just putting this on a bare bones Powerdrive without iPilot, this does not matter on having this completely straight. The reason why this matters with the iPilot is because when you go to use your functions, the orientation of your head of your trolling motor and your motor needs to be pretty much spot on, you know, with a little bit of variant maybe for like the best, you know, for your best, to have the best, I don't know, use of it. You know, you don't want to have everything a freaking mile off, so otherwise you're going to be having a whole bunch of erratic stuff. It's not going to be steering exactly like it's supposed to. So now I got these wires, and remember when we were talking about these little blue thingies, they sucked. So I got some heat shrink tubing. I'm going to snip this couple of these off. We're going to place these onto the wires beforehand. We will connect them, and then we will heat shrink that stuff on. I know it's getting a little dark out here. I'm trying to use nature's lights just because it's a little bit better for the video than my garage. I got one bright light in my garage, so it's not the greatest for doing a whole bunch of stuff. So black to black, red to red, pretty self-explanatory there. I hope there's not too much confusion out there on that. I'm gonna slide this over, get this cable right toward the middle. I want this sleeve to be covering, you know, half and half on each side, just like that. So there's the middle of my joint, half and half. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a lighter or any kind of heat source. I usually use a heat gun, but I do not have a heat gun with me today. And you're just gonna heat this up. Start in the middle, so that way it'll expel, you know, air bubbles out. You'll get the best seal that way. And keep it moving. If you've never used straight heat shrink tubing, you don't want to leave it in one spot because you will melt this stuff. So just keep it moving, and you'll watch it slowly. You know, it's basically vacuum seals on there for you that, you know, haven't used a lot of heat shrink tubing. Alrighty guys, I'm had some issues with the GoPro batteries, so we'll recap. I don't know where I left you off at. What I've got done so far here is I've gotten both the power, the positive and the negative going to the trolling motor, plugged in, shrink wrapped, and I did take these little tubes and I put them back over there just because they do have what seems like would be a lot of abrasion resistance for anything bumbling around in there. So the next thing you have to do, I kind of already did it, but I will undo it and redo it just for your guys' viewing pleasure. Right here, you got to get your transducer cable either put in, or you got to, in my case, I had all that extra wire. You have to have it put out. So there's this little piece right here. I don't know if you guys can see this. It kind of sits right here. You'll see right where your curly Q comes in. Your curly tail comes in there. And what I did, I took it out. There's just those two little screws right up here, two little Phillips head screws. You'll take it out, and it has a little tab right here that sits inside, right inside there. So if you guys can see that, there's a little tab that'll sit right inside there, and it'll clip back down. So just for sake of you guys being able to see this, I'll move you. Sorry for dropping you guys. I'm running out of light. I'm trying to keep her burning. Got a little headlamp out here for a light source. There we go. So what I did was I took this wire. You gotta take that out to be able to get it through that gap. It's basically the reason why you gotta take that off. So I took my little thing with the rounded part down. I put it down towards the bottom where the trolling motor is. I put it there, and I take that other, the wire that you have for your iPilot if you have it. You wanna clip that down in there with that little tab, just like so. So now you'll see it's all back in its spot. And now we're gonna put them screws back in here. Take it around to the back side so you can see what you're dealing with right over here. There's that little spot right there where those two wires are coming out. So now back to these wires, or not wires, I should say screws. Put them screws back in there. And if you make sure that clip's down in there, locked in, these two screws are all you're gonna need to put in there. You don't need to put them in there super tight. Snugging them up. I think I literally twisted the screwdriver. They got really coarse threads, like 2 turns of the screwdriver and a little bit of a snug. Not even one single ugga-dugga. So I'm gonna take this transducer cable and I'm gonna pull all the slack out of it. I'm probably actually gonna end up zip tying it down along that iPilot cord. So with this, what I had to do before, because I have so much extra in here, because I did not cut the wire when I cut my trolling motor shaft, just in case I decided to want to go back with that longer trolling motor shaft. A new trolling motor shaft is not that expensive. So I coil it up right there. And with it coiled up, you're going to probably have to pull out some of that slack out of that iPilot cord. You're going to want to have to look through there. You don't want to buckle anything. But you're going to want to get it right down, snug back like that. And then them 4 screws you took out in the beginning, you're going to want to put them back in. Like I said, we've only really used the torx bit. We've used a Phillips head screwdriver. We've used a 1/2 inch socket and a 5/16 socket. And then this torx bit for, I think it's a T20. Yeah, T20 torx bit to get the brush head holder out. So far we're doing pretty good. I mean, I guess we did have to use a torch to get that trolling motor shaft out, but I didn't think we were gonna get it out any other way. That thing was really in there. So some of these are deceiving. You think you'd be right on top of the screw, but you're not. So finding the screw heads in here can kind of be a pain. All right, snug, and these ones are just like those ones on that little plastic grommet deal you take out to get your transducer cable up there. I'm torquing them down to right when they get snug, and then I just give them a little bit of a snug. They're plastic threads on the other side. You don't want to strip them out because, well, then you're going to have stuff rattling around, and then you're going to have to really rig it to keep it from rattling. And I just feel like the nicer you can put it back together, the better it's going to continue to run for you. But there we go. Everything is installed on the trolling motor. I'm going to throw this headlamp on my head, and so that way you guys can get a better view of what I'm going to look at next. We are going to try to zip tie this. We're really running out of daylight, so I hope this isn't sucking for you guys. I am pretty new to the YouTube video thing, so alrighty, let's get to the best, funnest, and final part. So this is what we got here. I have that cord. What I did with this cord from the trolling motor head is I ran it alongside the iPilot cord all the way down inside this little slinky of a wire. And I mean, man, if this thing was like another, I don't know, 2 foot longer, I wouldn't even have to buy this 110-inch extension. But I did, so can't go back now. So when you look at this, you're gonna have, this is gonna be your end right here. You can see that. You got the male pins. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna find the female end of your extension cord. The female end is gonna be the end that has like all the little holes in it where the pins actually insert into it. And for that, which is pretty self-explanatory, you're going to want to line them pins up because they're not in like an equal pattern. And you're going to screw them 2 little metal connectors together. And I'm not sure how tight they're supposed to be, but I'm going to get them pretty snug. Being it's metal on metal, I don't see any issue going too tight on those. And it comes with all these little tiny wire deals. I'm going to keep them because I don't know if I'm going to need them or not. I might use them instead of zip ties. So there we go. Got the transducer cable put on there. And the only thing we have left is this adapter. And then I can literally just hook her to a unit. Alright guys, here we go. She's ready to go get plugged in. I'm gonna run this cable over to I got a Garmin Striker 7 on the console of my boat. I'm just gonna run it over there just to plug it in there, just to make sure I'm getting connection. And then I'm probably gonna put power to the trolling motor, make sure everything works, and test her back out. And if everything goes well, I think we now have spot lock and a transducer that doesn't wear through cables like nobody's business. Sweet. Alrighty folks, so not mean to line you there. This is what we got going on. So we do have we got sonar. She's all working perfect. 200 kilohertz. So yeah, I mean, we'll have a better idea once we get out to the lake tomorrow. And yeah.
Well folks, we did not get an outro filmed for this one. It was getting dark and I was fussing with the GoPro batteries. All around bad situation. But we did take the trolling motor out the next day and it worked flawlessly. I was so happy. No interference with anything. And having a transducer and spot lock is a game changer. It was great. That being said, if you guys liked watching this how-to video, message me, comment on the video, any ideas you guys have for stuff that you guys want to see made. If you guys just don't quite have the idea of how you guys want it done, and I will probably be able to facilitate something for you. And who knows, it might actually work out. I might, enjoy having it on my boat as well. But yeah, as always guys, like and subscribe. I appreciate every follower I have, and we'll catch you next time. Later.